Hello and welcome to Immortal Behaviour for this week. Joey, happy birthday for yesterday.
Thank you.
Did you get up to much last night?
No.
What's happened to you?
Growing old, 47.
All right. Well,
it?
we're still getting over Magic Round. A big weekend it was up in Brisbane.
Well, not for me.
Well, you
I
stayed
escaped.
you just did the Friday night, and then where'd you go? Tasmania for.
Tassie. Yeah. I knew my brother was coming up, so I thought I don't want to see him or Fletch, and I don't want to see a lot of other people. So out of there.
10 years ago, would you have ever thought that you would have bailed on a footy weekend in Brisbane and gone down to Tasmania to visit art galleries?
I'd be still there. I'd be still up there somewhere. SOS. Someone find him.
Well, it got us thinking. A lot of teams enjoyed their time up in Magic Round. Is there a team in the current NRL competition at the moment that you would love to go on tour with?
I think Penrith, maybe. I love those. I love Jerome Luai and Steve Crichton. But also there's some personalities in there. They'd be good fun to go away with, as long as the TikTok videos didn't go on. But they look like a lot of fun, those boys.
What about past teams that you'd like to tour with?
Maybe Chicago Bulls. I think me and Dennis Robin would room together. Go quite well. Get some earrings. Dye my hair red again. Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
What's the gridiron to LA Raiders? Is it something? They were known for their
partying
and wild ways. So that'd be fun.
No.
I think going with any of the American teams, because they just pull out wads of hundreds and just go, let's go. And
Yeah.
Vegas, you can go to Vegas and doesn't matter what you do in Vegas, a bit like Darwin. The looser you go in Darwin, the more you're revered. If you're not walking down the main street of Darwin with the long neck at 9 a.m, you're known as a stiff. I've never been to Vegas.
You've never been to Vegas?
No, don't trust myself.
Oh, really? I've been twice. Yeah, I don't think I would ever go back. I don't think I've done it.
Just thinking about it, I get that anxiety. Oh, no. Getting on the plane, coming home, and you're just like,
What about in Vegas?
I want my mummy.
With a team that has just won the grand final? Would you like to go?
No.
Nah, not even.
No. No interest at all.
Yeah.
No interest. I go somewhere like that. If I'm having a good time, I need the ocean to
cleanse.
get in and cleanse and just shake it off.
Yeah.
Oh.
You'd go, if you were currently in the NRL at the moment, you just won the grand final, where would be your end of season trip?
Vegas. Yeah, nothing like a man who's with contradictions.
Vegas, and you would just get a pool. You could have a little swim every morning.
One of those little baby pools that kids get in.
All right, well, let's talk about the crackdown on with the heads that we saw over the Magic Round. The Sydney Morning Herald is reporting that the NRL is considering limiting clubs' contact at training. What do you make of this?
I think it's a great idea. I understand what I've been reading about the brain injuries from boxing. It's not necessarily the ones where you get knocked out, it's just continue when they get jabbed. Like I work with Parramatta, but also been in and around Origin the last couple of years. The amount of contact they do at training, it's just awful.
Well, we've seen some players get injured. At training. I think there are a lot of roosters. There were a couple of
Tamalolo
roosters.
broke his hand.
Yep.
Not only that, in warm-up. You see players getting hurt in warm-up. So I understand there's rules in the NFL. I don't really follow NFL, but
so the NFL
minimal
can have,
contact.
Yeah, so they can have, it averages out to one contact session per week.
And they video all the sessions. The NFL video it all just to make sure. And I understand the first month of training or something that they can't even have a ball on ball work sessions. Something
So
like
how
that.
many contact trainings would the NRL teams have in a week?
I don't know because I'm not in there all week, but I'd imagine to be one or two. And also the wrestling part of it, I'd love to see that gone, where the NRL have the ability to video all the sessions. To get rid of the wrestling, but that's another story. It could go on forever.
Do you think that with how fast the game has become, that added fatigue, do you think that's impacted to a lot more of these lazy contacts with the head?
No, I don't think so. I just think we're watching it a lot closer, more scrutiny on it. I think in days go by, if you look at the game 30 years ago, or 25 years ago, 20 years ago, there was a lot of sort of contact with the head, but it'd just be play on, So Yeah, I don't think so. The interesting thing for me is the tackle technique is going to change. I think we can all see that. Now, I was a low tackler when I played, so my target was around the waist, but I reckon 90% of my concussions were from getting hit by hips, elbows, knees, whilst tackling low. And also with that, the lower tackles means quicker play the ball. There's no reward for tackling someone around the ankles. They get up and play the ball in 2-3 seconds. So if anything, it might make the game even faster. So look, it'll even itself out somehow just through sort of natural selection, how the game sort of evolves, but it's going to be tricky till then.
And well, the smart teams are on it from the get-go. They're the ones who...
Well, they're on it for everything.
Yeah.
They're onto it even before the rules come out. So a way to, how do you say, manipulate the rules or stretch the rules, the coaches will be all over it.
How do you think we'll see, you said before that it'll sort of even itself out. How do you think that we'll see this in Origin?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really thought of that far ahead. I just pray and hope in big games, Origin deciders, semi-finals, grand finals, the game on the line, someone gets binned for 10 minutes, it'd make me cry. Even if a Queenslander, maybe got sin binned, with 15 minutes to go and the game's on the line, let the players sort it out.
You want that excitement. We
want the theatre and the battle and the contest just to go down to the wire. I spoke on Freddie in the 8th. I think maybe, look, professional fouls are deliberate. Someone holds down, pulls a leg, runs someone off the ball, does something, a professional foul. It's a deliberate act to try to gain an advantage. That should be 10 minutes, where a lazy tackle, where one like Tyson Gamble, defending his line, everything he's got, he hits him and sort of slips up. I think it only maybe a 5-minute sin bin. Anyway, hopefully it sorts out.
Well, speaking of Origin, it is not far away, so here's a sneak peek to get you excited. Yep, well, game one at the MCG, not far away, so make sure you get your tickets at nrl.com/tickets.
This would be a great occasion.
Some memories of the
I'd love
MCG?
it. If I was a fan, it's something I would do. Definitely go down to Melbourne a couple of days before, experience Melbourne, get around, there'll be a buzz around town, and then get to the ground. The MCG is probably one of the great stadiums in the world. If you're talking NFL or cricket or soccer or whatever, MCG would be right up there.
It's one of those ones where you walk into it, the first time you walk into it, you always remember it.
Well, one of my bucket lists, I went and watched an Ashes game there in 2005, I think, and got to watch Warnie Bowl on Boxing Day. So everyone's there having a drink, you can hear the chatter around the crowd, and then it's like, coming in from this end is Shane Warne. The whole crowd went quiet. Everyone, it was like 90, I think there was 100,000, 95,000 there. Everyone's on the edge of their seat and he comes in. The king bowls. Everyone's, and everyone starts talking again, waiting. Comes back to his run up. It was just so good to be part of something like that.
Yeah, wow.
And then to play there, I think I only played there once. Maybe twice. I don't know if I played the Storm there. But a great occasion, running out there with the history of what's happened there with cricket and also AFL, it's a real pleasure. But as a fan, it is a massive occasion to be there when it's full.
Yeah, looking forward to it. All right, well, let's have a bit of a reflection of the first 10 rounds of the NRL. Out of the current $1 million players, which players do you think have added value to themselves?
Turbo, obviously he stands out. James Tedesco, both them. The beauty of that, they are just going to keep pushing each other to another level, which is frightening for other clubs. And I think Nathan Cleary, without doubt. In an era where, halfbacks are dime a dozen, Nathan just keeps going up and up and up.
If you were picking a team from scratch right now, who would be the first player out of those ones that you just mentioned that you'd select?
Without a doubt. As I said, the quality of halfbacks the pool of them seems to get less and less and less. And Nathan, I had a bit of a knock on Nathan a couple of years ago, just a small knock, that he didn't create enough. But he went so well together with Luai, because Luai was the opposite, the yin and the yang. He created and he was extroverted, a risk taker. But now Nathan is starting to take those risks, chip kick, throw flick passes, really chance his hand. And, playing outside the structure. And for him being 22, playing like he does now at 22, when he's 26, 28, oh my God.
Does that come down to confidence and playing with confidence and backing himself a bit more?
I think it is, definitely, but I think it's always just, as a halfback especially, you're just building blocks on what you do, and you start out here, and if you nail the basics, kick and pass and, kick well and this, then once you nail them, you can start building your game. He's up here at 22. So where he gets to, it's going to be so good to watch him for the next 10 years.
Have there been any teams so far that you've had a higher expectation for that have disappointed you a little bit?
I think my Knights have been disappointing. Obviously injuries to key players, Mitchell Pearce, Kalen when he's out, but you look at the Roosters of Jake Friend, Boyd Cordner, Keary, probably goes on, and they still keep winning. So, yeah, probably my Knights would top it. Trying to think who else. Broncos, obviously, but we knew they were going to struggle. Yeah, probably the Knights.
Have you noticed the gap between the best and the ones down the bottom of the team? How big of a gap, and is this the biggest gap you've seen in a competition?
I think so. Maybe mid-90s when we had 20 teams, just before Super League. I think there was a gap there between the teams. But yeah, the worrying thing for me is they're talking about bringing 2 more teams in.
Yeah.
I don't know where the talent pool is going to come from. Look, there's less kids playing sport in general, but less kids playing NRL, video games, worrying about, we're talking about head knocks now and how big the kids are in junior footy. So I've said all along, I think the ideal number to start with would be 14 teams. And then I think eventually going down to 12 teams where everyone plays each other twice. So I just worry with the 2 extra teams where the absolute elite talent pool is going to come from. But it's probably the biggest gap we've seen.
Is that your solution to reducing the gap, having less teams, or could you do it with salary cap?
Well,
could you do certain
I've sort of
drafts?
said in the past is put the salary cap right up and the strong survives. And clubs, they couldn't help themselves. You can't protect themselves to compete, and I don't know, eventually some would go broke. But if you look at it, there's probably too many teams in Sydney. How you get them down is, I don't know. It'll be an incredibly strong leader to make those decisions. But yeah, I just worry about 2 more teams and how the competition will be once we have 18 teams. We'll see.
All right, well, let's talk Melbourne Storm and in particular Nico Hines. Now, he's been remarkable. He's come in, he's filled in for Ryan Pappenhausen at fullback, but he's so versatile as well. What have you made of him?
Oh, he's been incredible. Absolutely incredible, whether he's playing 5'8" or fullback, which nowadays is very similar the way they play. But he just keeps getting better and better and better. A couple of years ago he was playing off the bench, or even sort of last year, but just that confidence and playing in that system down there, he does his job, and playing around all the other players who do their job and know the ins and outs of the structure in which they play. He's taking his game to a whole new level.
Is he one of the hottest players on the market at the moment?
Yeah, I think so. I don't really know who's off contract, but you'd have to say yes, because once again, the key positions. I think his best position is 5'8". He's been killing it at fullback, but I think if you got a real quality halfback, I think he'd be a strong 5'8", pretty big body, defends well.
Well, they have such a strong team at the Melbourne Storm. Do you ever worry about signing a player from the Storm, and because you can't really see how they're going to go without having all those players around them?
And the great coaching from Craig Bellamy, and they just know their job so well. Players who play at the Storm, and when they leave that and play at other clubs with certain freedoms, some struggle. I think if you look at over the past 20 years, the only players to really thrive when they left. Greg Inglis, obviously, but you're talking about an absolute freak. Israel, when he went to Brisbane, probably Cooper Cronk, didn't go into a bad team there at the Roosters. But yeah, it's a worry because we've seen other players, especially the sort of journeyman player, go to Melbourne, kick on, and then go to another club and sort of just disappear.
Do you think Nico could be one of those players that breaks that mould?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Depends what team you went to. Look, if you went to Brisbane, he may struggle, depending who they're looking to buy in the halves beside him, and also fullback and dummy half. I don't know to answer that.
Well, Clint, a team that you work pretty closely with, the Parramatta Eels, we saw Jacob Arthur make his debut on the weekend. And some pretty emotional scenes after the match as well from Brad Arthur, his father. Did you expect to see this coming?
No.
Brad's a very straight face.
Yeah, you wouldn't call Brad an emotional guy. I know he had some sleepless nights in the lead up whether he was going to play Jacob. And I spoke to him a few times about it. So I think he's ready. I think put him in there. But ultimately, you went to the other players, and pretty much every player did said, "Look, he's ready to go. Put him in." He was worried about the perception of nepotism and putting his son in. But you saw the reaction after he scored the try. One from his dad in the box, where he put his coach's hat off and was just a proud father. But the other players, the way they react. It's so cool to see. Everyone embraced him, everyone was hugging him.
And what about his mates as well that had travelled up to watch him?
I know, it was so cool. And he's sitting there, and I understand they drove up.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. Once again, so cool to see someone like that.
What was your father, Gary, like on your debut?
I don't know, I can't remember. I think he was pretty nervous before. May have calmed the nerves with a few bevies, Gary. But 27 years ago now. I can remember it. I can remember in the lead up.
Yeah.
I can remember the night before how nervous I was. I can remember in the sheds before the game.
But afterwards, it's all a bit...
Afterwards, a bit of a blur.
Yeah. You would have been so caught up with...
Oh, you're just so caught up with it. And we had a big win.
Yeah.
It was a pretty amazing day. Things like that, the big things stand out. Your first time you debut, those things are just incredible.
You said that Jacob Arthur's one of the hardest workers that you've seen.
No, the hardest worker.
The hardest worker.
Without a doubt.
What does that entail for footy players coming through? Give us an idea of what putting in, or to become the hardest worker.
Well, just the simple things I like to work on is, the technique of passing, long passing, short passing, the deception of where you hold your eyes and where you put your shoulders and to move the defenders and all this sort of stuff. The technique with kicking is a big one, for different kicks in different areas. And when I first started working with Jacob a couple of years ago, he was quite limited in how he had the skill of these things. It doesn't really come natural to Jacob. You see other players who are just freakish. Players, pretty much a lot of our Indigenous players, someone like David Pucci, Cody Walker, Owen Craigie for one, where the ball looks like an extension of their body. The way they play with it and they can throw it around. It's pretty amazing. But Jacob didn't have that natural ability. But from where I first started working with him to now, it is just poles apart. He just nails everything. His attention to detail. He's got a book at home where he writes things down and just little triggers in his brain. Watches endless video. Fitness-wise, he's just behind Clint Gutherson, who is miles ahead of everyone. So he just ticks all the boxes. Physically, he's going to get bigger and stronger. He's pretty tall and lanky. So give another 2-3 years, he'll put another 6-8 kilos on that frame.
So would he be coming into training early? Would he be staying late?
Yep.
What would he?
He's one of those. He's just one of those. You get there at training sometimes, he's out on the field with 10 balls, just practicing leaning on the spot. Endless repetition. It's so good to see. Things like he's doing a lot of stretching and yoga. I know he gets online and does my missus' yoga. And he's endlessly just working on his body, nutrition, everything. He never switches off.
And what about that studying component of it? When you're teaching him things, would he write stuff down then, or would he go home?
No, but I didn't know, but his dad told me. He said he's got a book at home, just writes things down, goes over it. If you want to say doing your homework. But everyone does the same plays, everyone does the same kicks. And this is what I tell them. It's the extra 10% of polish, which makes the play special or the pass special or what you're trying to do to get at defenders. And he's doing that all the time. He's ticking all the boxes. He watches games. He watches different halves. He watches different guys, the way they kick. He just wants it so bad at the end of the day. And I've never seen anyone work so hard and want it so bad. To see him on the weekend do it, it was so rewarding.
Well, they upgraded his contract just before the weekend, so he's now with the Eels for 2021 and 2022. But these next 2 games, how important do you think they are for him and auditioning and proving to other teams that he has what it takes?
I think this Sunday's game against Manly is a big challenge because emotionally he would have been sky high after that game. I saw him yesterday out at training. He's a level-headed boy. He seemed really good, but emotionally it'll be a test this Sunday. I know when I debuted and had the big debut game the next week.
You said you struggled the next week.
I played like a bastard. I played hopeless because my head was in the cloud. I felt like I was doing media and people were pumping my tyres up, and it wasn't until sort of Wednesday, Thursday I'm like, I've got to play this weekend, and played like a bastard. So it'll be a test for Jacob this weekend, but he'll be fine.
Do you think it puts a bit of pressure on Dylan Brown at all?
I think so. I think that competition I spoke before about Tedesco and Teddy pushing each other. I know at the start of the year when Pappenhausen killed a game, I texted Teddy. I said, are you watching? He goes, yeah, I'm watching. Then he comes out, I think it was round 1 or 2, he just come out and put a masterclass on. So those players just keep pushing this. So sometimes you drop your guard and think, you know what, I'll have a pizza tonight, or I'll do this, or you know what, it's Wednesday night and my mates are going out for a beer, I'll have a couple of beers. When you got someone there who's firing, it'll keep Dylan on his toes. Look, Dylan's a special player, a real special player, but it'll keep him on his toes.
But isn't that what you want at teams? You want that competition to keep
100%.
on egging everyone on.
100%, especially in those key positions. You know, if they're out injured or suspended for whatever reason and they're sitting there watching, you're going, I need to aim up the next couple of weeks of training. So it was good.
A big weekend of footy ahead. Your Knights travelling up to Townsville for the Cowboys.
Got some injuries. I think Tex Hoy's out. Kurt Mann will go back to fullback. Blake Green will come into the halves. Bradman Best is out with a hamstring. And look, without Kalen, stating the obvious, like Manly, they become very one-paced without Kalen's creativity and speed at the back. A whole new combinations now with Kurt Mann going to fullback. No, Bradman, the strike player on the left, so they're really up again. I don't know where their points are going to come from. I cannot see them scoring more than 10 or 12 points, which Cowboys at home, I look at Cowboys and the form they're in and the players again, I think they can score upwards of high 20s. So it's going to be a struggle.
Tough road trip. What game are you looking forward to most this weekend?
I think Sunday's game. Parramatta up against Manly, the old rivals. Remember those ads? Me and Freddie were singing it yesterday. It'll be near a full house there at Bank West.
Yeah.
And day footy is just so good. Sunday Arvo footy, at the footy, pie, beer, chanting for your team. It's just so good. They have a big win, you go out for a Chinese meal that night. It's just Rugby League 101.
All right, we cannot wait for that one. Thanks for joining us here on Immortal Behaviour this weekend. Enjoy the footy and we'll see you again next week.